tuning in to our Focus Atlanta 2023 launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 1, Past, Present, and Future. How Atlanta's past 5 years of economic development is shaping its future. Enjoy. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel. Panelists, please start making your way to the stage. Joining me for Past, Present, and Future, how the last 5 years of economic development have shaped Atlanta and its future, are Gerald McDowell, the Executive Director of the Atlanta Airport Community Improvement District, Eloisa Clementich, the President and CEO of Invest Atlanta, Jai Farrell, the Deputy General Manager and CMO of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, and Jeff Call, the Managing Partner of Bennett Thrasher. Please give my panelists a round of applause. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm very much looking for a discussion. We have some amazing panelists today to help us reflect on the past 5 years and set us up for where we're going next. I kind of like September as that back to school, back to work vibe, right? So it's time to get us to the end of the year and start that projection forward as we start closing up what is 2023 and start projecting towards 2024. So thank you all again for being here with me today. So I'd like to kind of set the stage and start by reflecting back. And so I'd like to ask all of you the same starting question. Atlanta, as we know it, is much more than just a city in Fulton County. Considering all the stakeholders that we have across the metropolitan area, how has coordination been a key element to the region's economic growth? Shall we go left to right? Eloisa? Oh, and you can just remove the microphones from the stand. We will need to share one, and there is an on and off switch that just goes up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yay, it works. Well, welcome and excited to be here with distinguished panel. I would say that what's important for us, or what we've seen, is really this opportunity of going, it sort of seems like a time, like BC, AC, now post-COVID. And so seeing what that has meant for us, we see a lot of differences now. It seems before there were a lot of COVID dollars. And so we are now thinking what's going to happen. Some of us have termed, I don't know if some of you will smile, but the COVID cliff is coming quite soon because all that extra funding is coming to an end. But we're really starting to think now, what are we doing to ensure that businesses continue to grow and are successful with all of the waves that we continue to see that are happening? And we're not quite sure if it's going to be a soft landing, a hard landing, or a swoosh. I've heard them all. But in either case, we're looking at what can we do to help businesses continue to stay strong? What can we do to help individuals stay strong? And so with housing and job opportunities, and those are really our focus areas, is looking to the future and learning from what we experienced in the past, but seeing what we can do to make different and ensure that people continue to be successful in Atlanta.
Before you hit it over, at this crossroads, what are the priorities?
I'd start, for us, as I was saying, the priority will be business and business development. So you'll see us creating new tools. So for the very first time in our history, we've created a commercial down payment assistance program. So if you think about a down payment assistance for an individual to buy their home, here we're thinking about it for businesses. How do you see that long-term, that dedicated legacy business ensure their success? So really trying to think through what are the challenges to businesses, how do we help them overcome that? And then on the residential side is, and this is a tough one, and I see many of my partners in the room, about affordable housing. How are we ensuring that we're meeting people where they are? So the type of housing you want, where you want, and at the cost point you can pay. And that for us is the challenge. That really makes us look at a spectrum, as housing as a spectrum to meet people where they are. So business, residential, workforce development, and housing.
Jai?
Well, I never got a chance to work from home. I was at work every day during COVID. So I think for an airport, our ecosystem, especially at Hartsfield-Jackson, we are the economic engine of the Southeast. So we have about an economic impact about $66 billion annually. Of that, my portfolio at the airport is $2 billion of that annually. Most recently, I'm thinking about Labor Day because I didn't get a chance to really get a burnt hot dog and break because we were working the whole time. We saw about 415,000 people in 4 days. Some people don't see that in their airport in the entirety of their system, let alone in 4 days. And so what we acknowledged was it's our job to provide jobs. I'm looking at Carmen Lita and a couple other folks from the ATL Chamber from the airport side, but we are the state's largest employer. 63,000 employees work at the airport or impacted by work at the airport. So one, it was keeping people at work. You asked me one of the challenges that we're having. Anybody flown out recently? Aging infrastructure. So the airport itself is about 40 years old. And so how do I build parking capacity? So I've been at the airport now 8 years. So yeah, I'm in the third grade, second grade. And so now that I'm, we were in school together. So when it comes down to what the airport ecosystem looks like, it's really capacity. It's how do we continue to meet 100 million people every year with parking facilities that are 40 years old. So pardon me if you hate coming to the airport to park. Gold Reserve is also available, but those decks are 40 years old, and they're not necessarily the ones that we're going to have in the next 10 years to be able to meet your need. Vertical transportation systems, things like elevators, escalators, and how do we do that in a system where you still need to be able to travel? For the developers in the house, you have brown and greenfield development, very different, right? You can build something and then come to it. I'm building something while you're in it. So we look at what that looks like. We look at what the minority participation looks like in that. But they also look like what is the impact to our stakeholders? And my stakeholders are not just the passengers. They're my peer airlines. There are countries that want to come into Atlanta because of our connectivity. There are businesses, small businesses, FMBE businesses. We have all of these various verticals. But how do we do so? We've got to have the proper infrastructure. And then lastly, labor force. So a lot of my issue during COVID was stores couldn't open. They couldn't open because they didn't have people to manage those operations. So the passenger that left the airport is not the one that returned. You have a different expectation. You want automation, you want AI, you want grab and go, you want all of those needs. I still don't have the capacity to build that while you're in this operating system. So what do? Do I shut down a concourse to do so? No, we figure out innovatively how can we meet your need while you're still getting to and from where you need to go. Again, 100 million people or so.
Jeff, through your eyes, what does communication throughout the region look like?
I think communication. Is it on? Yeah. Yeah, so communication throughout the region, I mean, for us, obviously, as a provider to a lot of other businesses, as professional services, you know, we're seeing, obviously, through their eyes, you know, what they need, there's a lot of public-private partnerships going on. Obviously, a lot of that on real estate development, like the West Side in Atlanta, different things like that. We're also seeing it with bringing a lot of new businesses to the community and all the things that the state's doing. We're really big in the film and entertainment space. One of my partners has a significant practice there, and so seeing all the film and entertainment stuff that's coming here with Trilith and Tyler Perry Studios and things of that nature are really big movers for the economy here for us and helping our clients and the things that they're working on.
And Gerald, I kind of maybe jumping on Jai's conversation about coordination throughout the region as it pertains to transportation, what has that been looking like, and how are you reflecting on the past 5 years looking forward?
I like the theme of the Atlanta Regional Commission this year, where it's talking about One Atlanta, and I think we start there, where we recognize all of Metro Atlanta. We're in it together, and when we look at Hartsfield-Jackson, the areas outside of the fence do not reflect what's inside the fence, and so in order for all of Atlanta to prosper, we have to make sure all of Atlanta is taking part in prosperity. And so when you look at South Metro, you have the same potential in South Metro that you have anywhere else in Atlanta. And that's what we need to leave here today and communicate to our peers and to those in our networks, is we need to ask folks to look south and see where there are opportunities. And what I can tell you, there are incredible opportunities in places like Clayton County. In Clayton County, in South Fulton, you have over 60,000 acres of undeveloped land, and at a price point significantly less than the rest of the region. So for One Atlanta to continue to prosper, that One Atlanta needs to also include South Metro. And so as we negotiate our networks, that's the message that we want to communicate to those in our network is we need to focus on all of Atlanta. And if we do so, then we can make that phrase, a rising tide raises all boats. We can make that true, because right now it certainly is not true in South Metro. The tide is sinking some of the boats in South Metro because of the untapped potential that we have in places like Clayton County in South Metro. So One Atlanta is all of Atlanta, and the opportunities that you find downtown or in North Metro, those same opportunities are in South Metro as well.
To piggyback off of that answer, I want to ask all of you another question, kind of looking at today in the current landscape. When we consider Atlanta's economic development, what do you see as the most effective tools available to public and private stakeholders to continue their respective growth? And what have been the major hindrances, and what needs to be done to correct them? Shall we reverse it, Gerald, back down to Eloisa?
Well, that gives me opportunity to talk about transportation. We believe our 21st century transit system will include some emerging mobility technologies. One of the things that we saw during COVID is that a lot of folks stopped, those who utilized public transportation, as we're coming out of COVID, those riders are not returning to public transportation. So what are they doing? They're using rideshare. They're using Uber and Lyft and other services that are similar. And what is the characteristic that is making that an attractive option for them? And that characteristic is an on-demand solution. What people are looking for nowadays is that they want to be able to access an app and have that app to schedule their ride when they're ready to go and have that ride to take them to where they want to go. And that's an on-demand solution. And that on-demand solution needs to be available in public transportation. And we believe that those solutions are found in some emerging mobility technologies. And we also believe that that is the key to accelerating prosperity throughout the entire region, not just in South Metro, because we need those technologies, but we believe that those technologies will also help communities throughout all of Metro Atlanta.
Fabulous. Jeff?
Yeah, I think some of the tools that we would see would be through the public-private partnerships, different tax credits and incentives and things like that to bring more developers into areas they normally wouldn't go into. That's what we see really as big drivers for that, is those opportunities to give those additional incentives that people may not otherwise look maybe to South Fulton, but if you give them some incentives to get there, those are definitely going to be big drivers that we see with our client base that would attract them to make those investments in those different areas.
What might you identify as some of the underutilized tax incentives specific to the region?
Well, I mean, there's Georgia has a number of different credits, Georgia low-income housing credits, Georgia historic credits, and different things like that are attractions. Obviously, there's also discounted loans and loan structures that are available a lot of times to developers to allow them to bring them into areas. Those are some of the ones that we see most often within our client base and that may attract the real estate developers to go to an area that they otherwise may not have been drawn to.
John?
I would say document hygiene. And the reason I say that is because all of the work that I do has to go through some type of open solicitation process. You'd be amazed at how many opportunities, whether it be with developers, future concessionaires, operators, et cetera, are not given an opportunity just because your document wasn't hygienic. You failed to certify something, you failed to provide a notary, you forgot a form. All those things are with the comprehensive package that you have to have. So I would say document hygiene. The other one is going to be understanding the various certifications and verticals that are available to you if you're a minority business operator. When it comes down to, I mentioned FMBE, but you also have SBE programs, local programs that our Office of Contract Compliance at the City of Atlanta certifies, but then you also have federal ones like the Airport Disadvantaged Concessions Program, right, which is what is required for all of the solicitations we have. And to be honest, the ACDBE pipeline is drying up. A lot of our legacy folks who've been there for a very long time are graduating out because of the amazing success that they've had. But what does that mean about when I'm ready to put out a new solicitation and I don't have people in the pipeline. It changes the criteria and the percentage of people who are inside the system. So I think understanding how the business works is so important. I think folks think, oh, Jai, you guys just awarded someone. No, that's not how it works. There's a process, and understanding what that process is and having the proper certification so that you can be a contender. There are so many great opportunities at the airport, whether it's providing marketing services, parking operator services, your own food and beverage location, but simple things like unhygienic documentation is a killer when it comes down to the ability for us to offer those opportunities. The other thing, and I'm going to punt to Eloisa, is understanding what funding opportunities are available to you. Don't wait until you're ready to solicit or ready to respond. Have those things already lined up so when you find that opportunity, whether it's a hotel I'm building or a child care center or those, be ready, because oftentimes you have a very small window from the time we post to the time you get to respond. But if you already have those relationships in queue, already certified, already put into the system, you have a better chance of success than if you wait and then it's kind of being responsive, I would say.
So jumping on what you had said, Jai, for us at InvestLand, there's a couple things that we've noticed. First was to your documentation and following the process that there was a need sometimes for technical assistance. So right now, for the first time also in our history, we offer free technical assistance. So if you want or need to apply for any of the city or any application and you want support, you can go there and get support with financing, marketing, legal, whatever it is you need to ensure that your business is competitive, to either apply or just to do business. So that was the first. Specifically about incentives, we were very intentional on our incentive structure to try to figure out how we create win-win situations. So how do we marry the incentive with what the need is? Let me give you a couple examples. The first one is we noticed, and you've often heard of this missing middle. So we created a middle wage job fund. What that means, if your company hires anyone that earns anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000, we will give you an incentive for that hiring of that individual, because that's exactly the behavior. We wanted to target that and be able to increase the number of individuals that fall within that salary range. That was a first. The second one, and some of you may have read, is we created an EOF, what we call, we love our alphabet soup in government, sorry. It's an Economic Opportunity Fund grant that's focused on eliminating food deserts, so fresh fruits and vegetables. That's the goal. That's the behavior we really want to create. So for the first time, we actually have funding at Invest Atlanta to put money into, think about all of the South Side, so South Atlanta, where there are food deserts, and we've actually mapped them out. And really in these targeted areas, we're looking very creatively about how do we bring fresh food and vegetables from, yes, everybody wants a grocery store. I got it. The number one I hear is, anyone want to guess what's the number of grocer that people want? Trader Joe's. Oh, what it is with Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is stuff. In either case, they're very hard to get, and it takes a long time. So we're trying new things. You're going to see a couple things where we're actually bringing in containers to come in to people to buy their fresh fruits and vegetables. Really just drop in quickly to be able to really address the needs. So trying new ideas, being creative, being able to be innovative, which is a little bit risky in our government world, because when you get it right, woo, great job. And if you don't, not so much, right? Not very forgiving public sometimes. So in this case, we're doing a pilot project, and we're going to do some innovative things to address the fresh foods and vegetables. The last thing we've done is we have a great tool that we use very often. It's called our lease purchase bond. And the third issue, what is the mayor's number one issue? Affordable housing. Who said it back there? Thank you very much. Someone's reading the paper. Yes. Mayor's key goal is affordable housing. So now what we're trying to do is lengthen the time for that incentive so it goes to 15 years, so it drives more affordability. So really thinking through what behavior, what's missing, what behavior we want to try to push, and then how do we do it with an incentive. So my grandma used to say it was what, with honey or with a stick? We're very much into the honey.
I'd like to get a little bit targeted and ask each of you some individual questions. And Jai, I'll start with you. As the busiest airport in the world, the billions of dollars of yearly economic impact is felt throughout the entire region. How has the airport worked in lockstep with public and private leaders to help drive economic development forward in Atlanta? And what is being done now to ensure it remains a strong community partner?
So we would not be an airport if we did not have airlines. So a part of my business and my portfolio is air service development. What you may not know is if you look at yourself, everything that you have on came here by boat, by air, or by truck. Everything, including my fabulous glasses. Everything came in some kind of way. So when you start talking about economic development, and especially from an airport perspective, cargo is king. Right now, we're number 8, maybe number 9, directly behind O'Hare and Memphis when it comes down to cargo opportunities. Well, if you come on the south side of the airport, you'll see a ton of Amazon trailers. Why? Because Amazon had more capacity than what I could hold them for. But when it comes down to people's ideas, and I think you mentioned this, it's app-based on-demand culture. I want it now. How many of you order something and you look at the tracking after 5 minutes of you ordering it to see if it's shipped yet? No, it hasn't yet. It's probably coming through the airport some kind of way. So cargo service is really important, and not just regional cargo service, international cargo service. So a couple of months ago, I launched a flight for Ethiopian Air. Ethiopian is what really big for them? Coffee. So having a coffee carrier and flowers. Fresh flowers is a very big deal as well. So looking at when we are going out we shop, it's kind of like courtship, right? You get married before you get married and you move in together and figure out who's going to have whoever's couch. You have to date each other. So a lot of my job and my team's job is to go out and court the markets that have the most economic viability coming into Atlanta, whether it be their goods, their services, connectivity for any reason. So for example, I learned that people that are trying to get from Ethiopia to Atlanta were connecting through Canada, coming in through Detroit, and then getting to Atlanta. But now I'm able to cut that by days by just having a direct flight. So there's a ton of algorithms and methodologies that we use to be able to look at that. Another thing that we look at, and if you haven't paid attention, when you're upstairs in your flight, your passenger service, cargo's in the belly of that aircraft. Delta has a very direct cargo-oriented strategy because they're already connecting everybody throughout the world. We can put flowers and coffee and all those types of things. So when they're looking at route expansion, we work directly together to understand where are their key markets, where are they underserved, where do we need to get involved, and how can we make this a viable flight and work together. The other portion is really using all of the solicitation channels that we have available to us. If you haven't heard, yes, I'm putting out for a hotel again. Eloise is laughing at me. But what's great about the hotel is it will be a triple P. We are looking for a public-private partnership, to your point, with regard to development. Why? It's because I am very smart, but I know what I do not know. I am not a hotelier. I do know that I have 17 acres across that are walkable from the airport that we can put a hotel on. So we do a lot of data-driven and market-driven research, which is really important. I have to say, when I start saying things, I promise you it's nestled in data, because that's the most important thing. Now, before COVID, after COVID, things have changed. They just have. Affordability, concrete, oh my goodness. The price of materials, I'm building a parking deck, that's how I know. The price of materials is exponentially higher, but that does not mean that I don't need the services. Does that mean I charge you $100 to park at the airport, or do I find a way? So Mayor Dickens said, Jai finds a way. So that's what we're looking at. How can we provide the services that you need in an ecosystem that has changed vastly in 36 months with you still being able to provide services to your family? Gerald and I talk all the time about CIDs. Well, people don't live not too far from where they work. They go to church there, they work there, their kids go to school there. So how can we continue to create jobs? Does that job look like a parking operator? Maybe. If I'm paying parking attendants $25 an hour, that could be a really great opportunity. So we also look at wage. The wage gap was very evident in the airport ecosystem. We still had people who were making $7.25 in the airport. What we did, along with Mayor Dickens' direction and my general manager, Ballroom Theodori, the contracts that I have control over, direct control over, everybody went to $15 during COVID, period. So does that mean it's more for me to do business? Yes, but if people can survive, they can thrive.
I just want to add, Jai. Jai's take, there's a list outside. If anyone wants to go on those dating games with her across the world on the airport dime, right? Jai, you'll allow us to do that. All right.
It's pretty intense, I promise. It's not sexy.
Well, Gerald, let me toss it to you. The 3 core areas of your organization focuses on beautification, public safety, and transportation within the CIDs. Over the last 5 years, how have you seen technologies like AI and innovations like microtransit and autonomous shuttles help your organization better achieve long-term goals in these areas? And what will their impact continue to be on economic development in the region?
We started out about 5 years ago looking at these emerging mobility technologies, and now we're ready to start piloting some of these technologies. So by the end of the first quarter in '24, we will have a microtransit service in operation. And a microtransit service is a public transportation service where you're using smaller vehicles like a minibus or a van, and and you have a particular service area, and anyone who's in that area can use an app to request a ride within that service area. So we'll be piloting that by the end of the first quarter in '24. And then by the end of this month, in September, we're going to be releasing an RFP to pilot a personal rapid transit solution. That's a pod car that will move 4 to 6 people, and it's a on-demand service that has its own guideway. And one of the things that we were able to learn over the last 5 years is these emerging mobility technologies, they're not 10 and 15 and 20 years away. They are immediately ready to deploy and implement. And fortunately, by being in the ATL Airport, Hartsfield-Jackson area, we are attracting a lot of attention from these emerging technologies. And I wanted to use the analogy of a sports analogy. You know, when you're on a team, and that's what the theme of the Atlanta Regional Commission is, One Atlanta. When you're on a team and one of your teammates hits a home run, that home run is for the entire team. It's not just for that individual, but it's for the entire team. The entire team gets a score, and the entire team could potentially win. And I saw Clyde here earlier. The Beltline was a home run for Atlanta, and that home run has now created other multi-use trail initiatives throughout the region, and we are seeing that it's transforming communities. And I heard from one of my Clayton County commissioners that it's coming to Clayton County. Well, we believe emerging mobility technologies solutions is another home run for our region, and we want to take the lead by implementing pilots so that we can demonstrate that solution, so that other communities in the airport area, in the region, and even throughout the state of Georgia will be able to see that this is a home run for the team, and that we are taking a swing, and we are hoping to knock it out of the park. And unlike what's happening in St. Louis right now, we're going all the way to the World Series, and we're going to win.
Go Braves.
Go Braves.
There you go. Jeff, considering your role at Bennett Thrasher, how have you seen the financial profile of clients, families, and individuals evolve throughout your tenure? And what does that symbolize for the region, its economic development, and the companies that are moving here?
Yeah, I think I've been with our firm about 21 years, and definitely in that period of time, our firm has grown tremendously. I think when I joined the firm, we had about 55 people. Now we've got 450 plus. But we've certainly seen just a very diverse profile of wealth creators, a lot of business owners, and it's been great to see. I mean, you have people that maybe created a business 5 years ago, and they had a liquidity event already, especially around technology. We do a lot of work with a lot of technology clients, and so we've seen tremendous wealth creation, very diverse from, you know, all across the economy, just really diverse wealth creation, and it's been fantastic to see that. And younger and older too. I mean, so I think obviously as COVID's hit, I think a lot of people maybe took a step back and said, well, maybe I should have my own business. And so we've seen a lot of business creation over the last 3 to 4 years as well. So it's been really fantastic to see that. And we serve those clients across many different facets, from tax strategy and audit and tax, as well as wealth management and other things like that. So it's been really, really great to see that across the community.
Fabulous. Eloisa, in your interview with Focus Atlanta this year, you mentioned how in 2022 alone, your organization had the role in influencing a creation of 4,800 jobs. From your perspective, what has been the most significant efforts made over the last 5 years in regard to building and retaining Atlanta's workforce, but what also still needs to be done?
I think that what's so unique here in Atlanta, when you look specifically at our IT sector, we see that 20% of everyone who works in IT in Atlanta is African American. And I think that diversity is attracting more companies to Atlanta for example. That if you put it in perspective, that's 4 times more than in San Francisco. So there's a huge opportunity. And when I'm talking to companies and asking, hey, why are you choosing Atlanta? What are you interested? The number one issue is workforce. They want to go where people are, the people that are having the most creative ideas, that are just most prepared. And you're going to find that here in Atlanta. I think that has really been something that's been our secret sauce that's helped us continue to be competitive. Now, with that said, I would say that we continue to do that through working with partners. Mayor just announced Department of Labor. So how are you ensuring that we're upskilling individuals, or that there is a direct connect between the skill set that an individual has and the skill set that the business needs? We got to ensure that continues to align for this to work. And so working with Department of Labor to try to do that, to find alignment on skill set, is really where we're going to spend a lot of our time. And we will continue to do that, but we have to ensure that ultimately individuals want to come to the city, right? And so it has to be this great experience. I remember I had an interview once with an individual, and they said to me, you know, Eloise, I just turned down a job. I was like, why? And they're like, oh, it's too far. Okay, I don't know about you, but when they said too far, what would you think of? An hour? Okay, I thought New York or something. That's what I thought was too far. They said outside the perimeter. I was like, I couldn't believe it. They were a millennial. I was like, are you kidding me? Talking to a person who moved from California and D.C. and Atlanta, just crazy. I was like, are you kidding me? That's like a half an hour. But to your point of transportation on demand, that was too far for them. So this is one of those things that we really want to focus on, the quality of place. I'm not going to be able to attract or retain the individuals that are graduating from Georgia Tech and Kennesaw and Emory and the AUC Center schools unless we have that great, awesome stickiness that people want to stay here. So I think the important role of our culture events, of our amazing sports teams, of the music side, this is going to be very important. So to me, it's all connected. It's not either or. We want it all, and Atlanta deserves it all.
So to round out our discussion today, I want to ask a 2-part question to all of you. As we're considering the last 5 years and projecting forward, what would each of you identify as the biggest opportunity for Atlanta moving forward into 2024 and the biggest challenge? Gerald, do you want to start? Okay.
I'll start from an airport perspective, not Atlanta. I'll leave that to Eloisa. So fast facts about the airport. We are 4,700 acres. It's not that big. And so we have other airport footprints. I mean, Denver is like, what, 40,000 acres of space? So we literally are growing by shrinking. Our footprint is shrinking. How am I supposed to put more capacity for X or Y if my footprint is small? So what we're starting to look at is ingenuity and innovation. So how can I still grow with what's shrinking? The other thing is passenger-based expectations. So I don't know if you've been to the airport lately. I just left there. But the passenger expectations have changed. Last week, we opened up Private Suites, which is a member-only terminal where you don't even have to come to 6000 North Terminal Parkway. You go on the backside where the Renaissance is. You come in through a terminal that is for you, is a level of white glove service. You check your bag there. You do TSA screening there. You have a nice XM BMW that takes you airside and takes you to your first class seat. People want diverse options at the airport. Everybody doesn't want to go through TSA pre-check. Shout out to all the Clear and Global Entry folks, but everybody doesn't want that experience. Some people just want 100% touchless. So how can I offer that to you? We're doing the pilot of digital ID. So if you've, yeah, you love it. Me too. I use it too. So when it comes down to what can we offer, the other thing when it comes to the airport is how can we grow with what we have? And so, again, 40 years of aging infrastructure, what does that look like? How can we continue to be the world leader? Because everybody's like, busiest airport in the country. No, on the planet, just to clarify. But when it comes down to what those expectations are from a passenger perspective, I had someone yell at me because I said that I was moving to electronic pay only. Why? I don't need a cash room anymore. I don't really want to deal with auditors and all that. If everybody's swiping, it's easier to maintain. Well, I have a culture of folks, so that's what they've been doing for 40 years. So for me to come in and say, yeah, you need to use an Apple Watch. My grandfather's 80. He uses one. You should know how to. That's difficult because post-COVID, expectations have changed. So how do we do that? And then lastly, and Joe's going to laugh at me, is electrification. So Delta's moved to their GSE, which is pretty much your tugs, super tugs, things like that to help your bags and get the plane off the ground, to being 50% electrified. I don't think, and I know for a fact, that we have the electrical infrastructure to support something like that. I have more Teslas and more Leafs and all that stuff coming through from a vehicle perspective. What do I do? Do I add EV charging stations to the parking decks? Do I figure out somewhere for them to park satellite? All of those types of demands, because everybody's carbon footprint conscious of late, but they want that 360. They want that at the airport too. So what does that mean for my capital plan? When you talk about the 4,700 acres, and this kind of goes into Gerald's point, the airport, so we have a term, inside the fence. Inside the fence means runways, landside, buildings and facilities that are airport specific. But in partnership with Eloisa and also with Gerald, Carmelita, and others, we have about 45,000 acres outside of the fence. So what do I do with that? Why did I acquire that land? I acquired it because at one point, 25 years ago, somebody thought we were going to have a sixth runway. We probably won't have another sixth runway until probably, I don't know, maybe 40 years from now, based off of trends. But we acquire a lot of this property because of federal regulations, environmental studies, sound. There's all kinds of reasons as to why we acquire it. So what I'm looking at is how can I generate revenue on these sites until we're ready to build? So that might be a parking deck, that might be a cargo facility, that may be live, work, and play. I don't know what that looks like, but how can we still continue to grow? Because all of my aeronautical revenues are fixed. So if you do nothing else, I want you to look at your phone when you leave here and look at all the fees that you pay for when you come through an airport. Everybody's like, oh, the airport, the airport. Listen, I take no government city money, ever. All the funds and the fees that we get is from non-aeronautical and aeronautical revenue. So those fees that you see, I don't want your fees to go up. That's why Atlanta thrives so well. So how can I keep this very competitive for you and also cost conscious for me, but then also make my $2 billion?
Who's the brave soul?
I think I'm ready now.
Great. Gerald, you're up.
I think the biggest challenge is going to be the change that's happening in the workplace in terms of, do you work in the office, do you work remote, that hybrid schedule? Because that decision that is made by each individual business is impacting so many sectors. Even, you start with the office, but it's not just the office, it's the restaurants and the other businesses that depend on people coming to work and then going out and running errands while you're at work. So I think figuring that out is going to be one of our biggest challenges over the next 5 years. The opportunity has been teed up by our governor. The governor and the Georgia Department of Economic Development has brought in some new initiatives in terms of electrical vehicles, electric batteries. We need to leverage that. It's the same way we leverage film and television when that incentive was put in place. There's an opportunity now for the next generation of college graduates, of small business owners, and especially minority business owners to look at that sector and figure out, how do I now leverage what the state has teed up for us over the next 5 years? Because potentially the same thing that technology did to Silicon Valley, that sector will do to Georgia. And if we leverage that, we have a tremendous growth opportunity because, as it's been indicated, our future is going to be electrification. And of course, there are challenges associated with that, but it's our future, and we have a head start here in Georgia because it's been teed up for us. And if we figure out how to leverage that, it's going to be a tremendous opportunities for a lot of individuals and for a lot of companies.
Absolutely. Jeff?
Yeah, I think the opportunity, there's a number of opportunities. I think one, obviously, is just the tremendous amount of migration of people from California, from Illinois, from the Northeast to this area. That's creating a lot of business generation, business opportunities. And obviously, I think the state's done a great job, the governor and everybody else, to bring those people here, the attractions of coming here. We have a great business environment. I think one of the challenges, obviously, is with all these people coming, the traffic, and how do we manage that and keep that where it's manageable. Obviously, that's a significant challenge that we have to continue to work on, and looking at all the different types of transportation that Gerald was talking about for sure would help there.
Excellent. And Eloisa?
I'd say, first off, some of the challenges, and I don't like the word challenges, I always say opportunities, but the challenges I think for us is how do we think through the need for transportation? I think that's going to be key. Affordable housing, it's real, and just housing in general, the access, the need to be building more and be more active, and access to health care. is, especially in some parts of the city, are very, very important, and access to fresh foods. Those are real issues that impact everyday families that we have to figure out for us to continue to grow and be successful as a city. The opportunities, I would say, I want to do first the short term. I'm really excited about the World Cup. I don't know if anybody else is. I think the Olympics really put Atlanta on the map. Now, is it going to be at the stage of an Olympics? I'm not quite sure. But I think our opportunity to get people back here and show the changes is going to be dynamic, and Atlanta can really have an opportunity to showcase what we have. I think I don't want to miss that, knowing that it's short term. And long term, and I don't mean to be political on anyone. I know the next panel is about diversity, equity, inclusion, but just the change. Atlanta has been so bold since I've been here now, almost 12 years, that we have minority participation rates. We have minority involvements. We've seen the richest amount of activity for African Americans in the United States here. And I would just challenge the opportunities to continue that boldness, even though we see a lot of litigation. I hope that Atlanta comes together as a city and a community to continue that boldness and not be swayed by a couple lawsuits, because what we're doing is generational. Until we change some of this underneath families and ensure empowerment, then we won't be successful as a city. So, opportunity.
Excellent. Well, please help me thank our panelists again. It's a wonderful discussion, and I'd love to take a picture with you all.